We're pumped. We are so pumped to have you here. Really, since the date of booking this, for you to share your. Sometimes I feel like I'm a soft person because I was born here in Canada, and our parents obviously had quite the journey to get to this country.
Right.
And then I read your story about coming to this country, and we were just laughing before we started this because you immigrated from Nigeria.
That's
correct?
right.
And you landed in Saskatoon, and there's nothing wrong with Saskatoon. I've never been there. I'm sure it's a beautiful place, but to come from Nigeria and land in Saskatoon, Canada in January.
That's right.
You must have. Did you want to just turn around immediately? What was the reaction?
Well, I mean, we're lucky because we had some friends that were already in Saskatoon. And so they had prepared us a little bit. And for some reason, we thought all of Canada was just like Saskatoon. So we had no idea what Canada looked like.
So when you got to
Don't worry,
Toronto...
Tom's already offending anyone from Saskatoon right now.
Look, I'm a fan of Canada. Everybody knows this. We don't exist without this country.
In January, coming from Jamaica, right? Jamaica.
No,
from
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, butchered that one. But yeah.
Well, we were talking about going on vacation to Jamaica.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's right.
But to land in Saskatoon, you must have thought Toronto was tropical by the time you got here.
No, certainly. I mean, I actually landed in Toronto first because we had to change flights. And I had the opportunity to spend a night in Toronto. And so I think the temperature in Toronto when we got here was about 16, 17 degrees, minus 17 degrees. Then the next day, I landed in Saskatoon. It was like minus 30, minus 35. And so there was a difference.
Yeah. So you got to. I need to know the story. What made you leave Nigeria and come to Canada? What's the thinking to leave? You know where you're from. You're leaving family too. I know you had some people here, but you left family too. Why? Why the move?
Well, it was just chasing better opportunities. So in Nigeria, I was already working in the banking industry in Nigeria. I had a first degree in chemical engineering. Never really worked as an engineer, but I went straight into the banking industry. So worked for about 4 or 5 years, rising up to head of cash management operations at one of the big banks in Nigeria. And so I had these conversations with some of my classmates that left Nigeria a few years earlier, to come to Saskatoon to pursue postgraduate degrees. And so I was chatting with them, and they said, wow, why don't you come over here? This is good. And I was thinking, then I just got married. And so I said, okay, why don't I talk to my wife? Let her try it first.
Send her as the guinea pig.
That's right, before I go. So my wife agreed. And so we applied for a postgraduate degree admission for her. So she got into University of Saskatchewan, into their Masters of Economics degree. And so she processed her visa, everything worked out for her. So in September 2001, that's when she left. So she left Nigeria and came to Saskatoon. And I thought I would have a little bit more time to join her, but she was just hitting me. No, you can't stay that long. You have to come right away. So it turned out I didn't have much time. So I left in January 2002, all the way to Saskatoon to join her. And the reason why we came here was just to pursue better opportunities for
so
us.
for those Canadians who don't understand what better opportunity means, what did it mean to you? Like employment, lifestyle, opportunity to get ahead? How did you define opportunity?
Well, for us, I think it was more of lifestyle. If you know anything about Nigeria is more like a third world country. Infrastructures are not well developed. We had good jobs, and so we were lucky because we had good jobs, so we could afford everything we needed. But again, we are thinking ahead for our kids. And that was the reason why we decided to come here, because we thought coming to a country like Canada that is more stabilized with all the infrastructures in place, it was going to be much better for our kids. And so that was one of the reasons why we decided to come.
Yeah, you were really looking ahead because you didn't have kids yet when you arrived,
no,
right? But you were just thinking ahead.
That's right.
And then how was it when you started to work here? Like I noticed in your story on your website here, you have it all kind of laid out, which is reading it is crazy, Ken, to see what you guys have gone through, because it looked like you started working in factories and grocery stores here in Canada. So to go from a high-paying job, or I don't know if it was high-paying, let me correct that, a good job in Nigeria, relatively good job in Nigeria, to come here working in grocery stores and factories, man, you were committed. Like you were committed. And
That's
then
right.
probably not having your bachelor's degree in chemical engineering recognized here in Canada.
That's right. So that was it.
Did
That
you?
was-
Well, I guess what I'm getting to is, did you want to go home? How soon did you think you had made a mistake and you wanted to go home?
well, almost right away.
Yeah.
Almost right away. So we started questioning ourselves. Did it make sense to come here in the first place? Because coming here, what we had to do, we had acquired some assets back in Nigeria. And so we had to liquidate most of that to come here. And so we arrived here. We had about close to $10,000 in cash. And we just started burning through that cash quickly. And so as I was looking at the bank accounts, my wife and I were beginning to get worried. And so my wife was in school full time. Then she started working part time as well. And I give a lot of credit to my wife because she had a lot of patience for me. And the expectation from my wife saying, okay, man, it's time for you to get a job. It was 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, no jobs. And I was worried. And if you know, I'm a black man in Saskatoon, mostly dominated by white people. And I was lucky because I had an English name, right? And so I would send out my resume. I will always get calls.
Got it. I never thought of that. Ken Green.
So, that's right. So I will always get calls for interviews. And then I will jump on the bus in the code. I will show up. And all of a sudden, they'll start looking at me. Say, who are you? Where did you come from? And the conversation would change. And so I tried many times. It just didn't work. And so I ended up, I said, well, I got to figure out something to do to generate some income. And then that's how I landed up, started doing some factory jobs. And then I think it was $7 an hour. I started doing that. And so I did that for a couple of months. At some point, I realized I just couldn't sustain this. And my wife and I, we decided, okay, you know what? Let me apply for MBA. And so I did my GMAT. I studied, did my GMAT, and got admission at the Schulich School of Business here in York University in Toronto. And the issue now was I didn't have the money. We've almost drained all our cash. And so I took what was left in the bank account, all of it, paid as an advance payment for my tuition, and left, came to Toronto. And my wife was still in school, working part-time. I said, okay, we just got to figure out a way to pay for the rest of our fees. And so started the program. As I was doing the program, I was also doing part-time work from time to time, still working in factories in Toronto. And at some point, I just didn't have enough money when it was time to pay some fees. I had to call my parents and my brothers. I said, liquidate another asset for me in Nigeria. So they did. Sent about $7,000 or $8,000. I used that to pay my fees. And graduated. When I graduated, I was lucky. I got my first job with PwC right after my MBA. And in I think it was $40,000.
Must have felt like hitting the jackpot. At
That's
that point.
right. So wow. that was good. So that income was there. My wife finished. She came to Toronto, got a job with the bank. And then we slowly started. We got a loan because now we have jobs. We got a loan from RBC to pay off all the school fees, outstanding school fees. And then we slowly started working and started paying off the loan with RBC.
Was it? Wow. That's when I just think you're a stronger person than me to go through that, and that's when I feel like I'm so lucky, right?
I just think I'm lazy.
Yeah,
you know, it just makes me like, I think I do a lot, but then I hear that and I'm like, I've never really had to do that, you know, gone through that type of journey.
And
that's incredible. Like that's I'm sitting here I was like just listening, being just kind of reflecting on, you know, my journey probably during similar years, and I'm like, that my journey was not that. It was substantially easier. So
calling home overseas, saying liquidate whatever you can and send me cash. At that point, was your family telling you to come back home?
No, not really. They were really, really supportive. So they knew that staying here in Canada was much better for me. And so they were really, really supportive of that. And so I was, I think that gave us some motivation. We just needed to figure out how to make it work here.
Man, you and your wife, though, I'm curious, like through that, you guys must have built a pretty strong relationship, because as you're going through those step by step and you're kind of making it all work, you know, in a new country, you're just leaning on each other, especially once you come to Toronto. Because did you have, by the time you came to Toronto, did you have friends here like you had in Saskatoon, or you were coming here and you guys basically were starting over again after leaving Saskatoon?
Well, we didn't have anyone in Toronto per se, but what we had was, so our friends in Saskatoon knew a few people in Toronto, because what they've done, so in those days in Saskatoon, what our friends used to do, in the summertime, they would leave school. My wife also did that. In the summertime, they would leave school because Saskatoon is so small, it's tough to get jobs sometimes in Saskatoon. So most people will leave school and come to Toronto. So they'll come to Toronto, work in the summer months, get some cash, then go back in September to continue with their studies.
Yeah.
And
Like-
my wife did that too, as well.
Cool. That's funny because then it reversed a number of years ago. It reversed because a lot of people were doing that, going to Alberta, especially with
Leaving
the oil
Toronto.
fields,
That's right.
leaving Toronto, going there for months at a time, and then
That's
coming
right.
back here, right?
That's right.
When was the moment that you felt like you were starting to get ahead? You know, when you were starting to pay off that student debt? When was there a flip moment where you were like, okay, you know what? I think we're now getting ahead. Was it when the debt was paid off? You pretty early got on. You got a Kitchener rental property in 2007.
That's
When did
right.
you graduate? 2000 and
So I left 2005. That's when I graduated from Schulich.
yeah. So 2005, 2007. It's only 2 years from graduating
right.
there and then picking up your first rental property. That's enough to change your life.
So why so quick? Like in 2 years, you jumped into that. If you were just getting out, I don't know, for lack of a better term, digging yourself out of a hole because you were using all your
That's
funds. You jumped right into that. What was the lot? Did you have exposure to that type of stuff back in Nigeria through your family or something?
No, not really. So because we're so hungry, when my wife and I, when we were trying to figure this out, so we started learning a lot about real estate, about business, about everything. So we just started reading and learning a lot. Then in 2005, when I started working, and my wife too had a job. So both of us, we had a job. We had about total of 70 grand in household income. But we were lucky because then in 2005, we didn't have kids yet. So it was just both of us.
Oh, hold on. Your kids might listen to this. If you're lucky,
Yeah,
you're lucky
yeah,
you didn't have the
We were
kids.
lucky we didn't have any kids.
So then our expenses were really, really low, right? And so we were able to save. Not me. I give a lot of credit to my wife because I was spending everything I had. So my wife was she's good at saving. And she was the one paying down the debt. And I didn't even know she paid off the debt until I think she did it very quickly in like 2 or 3 years. Because what the plan we had was that I'm going to pay all the expenses. So I was paying the rent, I was paying all our household expenses, and so my wife was just saving her own cash. And so it was through her savings that in 2006, we had enough to buy our first home. So in 2006, that's when we bought our home in Brampton. And so we moved into our home in Brampton. And so I was learning all this stuff about real estate. In 2007, when we had the opportunity to buy our first rental property, I went to my wife. I said, wow, so there's an opportunity for us to buy our first rental property. And I had to convince her. But then we didn't actually have the down payment. So we were able to put together 10 grand. And this is a funny story because our first rental property was our biggest mistake. And the reason is because we actually signed all the documents and we didn't know that we had a second mortgage on that property. So the mortgage brokerage we were using, they had arranged everything.
We didn't help you with that one, did we?
No,
Okay,
you.
good. We saw you. Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that's early on. We didn't help you with that one.
So it was so bad that we didn't even know that we had a second mortgage of about 20 grand on that property. Until a year later, when that mortgage was due, we got a call.
Because they wanted the balloon payment.
That's right. We got a call. You guys have to pay us 20 grand. I said, 20 grand? How come? From where? Why? And so that's when we went back and started looking at the documents. And wow, we actually signed a second mortgage as part of this agreement or this deal. And so,
That's one way to learn, Ken.
That's right.
one way to learn, man.
it was crazy. And they were not ready to extend. And I looked at my wife, and all of a sudden, she just brought that 20 grand. And we paid it off. So she had some savings. She had a line of credit. We paid off the 20 grand. And then we just continued to manage the property. We had a lot of issues with that property, but that's something we'll talk about later.
Wow. Do you still own that particular property today?
No, we eventually
You
sold
got rid
it.
of that one.
That's right.
But like 2002, you land in Canada. Your wife's already been here for 4 months or so.
That's
But
right.
2002, 2006, first home in Brampton. 2007, first rental property. Signed first amount of crazy paperwork. We've all been through signing crazy paperwork. That's what I feel like that's your rite of passage as a real estate investor, like just doing messed up things. You survive that. That's a pretty quick turnaround though. Like from 4 years, Nick, that's interesting too, just from someone new arriving to Canada, 4 years, like they worked hard and saved, but that's the time it took to buy their first home. But then they didn't stop, they bought another home. And it's because Ken spends money, his wife saves all the money, but Ken was spending money, so he found another thing to spend money on. This time it was good, but the paperwork was bad. So
I like how your wife just appeared with 20 grand to pay off the
thank
mortgage.
God, you know, the more, Ken, the more I hear about your story, thank God you met this woman.
Yes, yes.
So, okay, so 2007, when do you transition into, I want to talk more about real estate stuff, but into accounting full time? Because now it's your own practice.
So now is my practice.
How did that trend? Yeah. So how did you get to be your own practice? You left the corporate world?
That's right. So I left the corporate world at some point. So in 2005, I got my first job here with PricewaterhouseCoopers. So in PricewaterhouseCoopers, I was working in their audit division, so doing a lot in downtown Toronto. So I did that job for about 4.5 years. In 2008, so late in 2008, early 2009, I went on secondment to the US. So I worked in California for 6 months with PwC. Wow. And so after the 6 months, it was such a tough 6 months because it was so busy. I spent all that time just working for the most part. But I was lucky because I still had some time to enjoy the city a little bit. Because what they were doing at that point, they gave me the opportunity to fly back every 2 weeks.
Wow.
Or to fly my family. And so I had the opportunity to go to so many US cities because it was too far to come to Toronto. I always didn't come. I flew my wife and my daughter at the time, so they came to LA a few times. But it was an awesome 6 months. But when I came back to Toronto, I was so exhausted, I just couldn't take it anymore. And then I got lucky, I got a job with the bank. And so in 2009, I left and went to BMO. So while at PwC, I couldn't start my own practice because it was conflict of interest. So as soon as I moved to BMO, I started a side hustle doing tax returns. And so that's how I started my business. And so I would do those in the evenings and weekends, mostly in the busy season.
How did you get the client? Like, how did you get the customers for that?
It was mostly friends, so people that I knew. So just talking to my friends. And so I got a few clients working the business as a side hustle while I was still working at the bank. Because at the bank, I just found out that I had a lot of time. And so the job was not as stressful. And oftentimes I would just sit to my desk doing nothing. So then I was just using that time to build my business, to read more about real estate, to learn more. And I did that for a few years, then moved to RBC in 2015 or so, or 2014, yeah. Moved to RBC. Then in 2016, I got fired from RBC. So that's when...
Good. Good. That was a positive.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's when I just moved into full-time. Then the business had already grown to some point. I had a partner.
Did you have an accounting designation of some sort at that time?
I had it from PwC.
Oh, you did?
So
From PwC,
while at PwC, I got my CPA.
Okay.
So I did all the professional exams. I got my CPA while at PwC. Then started practicing. I was lucky because I partnered up. So I started my.
You keep saying you were lucky in certain things, but you realize how much hard work you've put in, right? The luckiest people work the hardest, man. So you keep saying you're lucky, but it's more than luck. But
maybe more than luck.
Yeah. It's more than luck. But okay, so
So in 2012, I got lucky and partnered up with someone, a lady that I knew at PwC. And so she had moved on from PwC to a smaller firm in Burlington, and she wanted to run her own practice as well. So in 2012, we came together, I partnered up with her, and we started our firm, GMS Professional Corporation. So she was full-time while I was still part-time.
Yeah, that works. Yeah, that works. That was nice. So there's some cash. You had some cash flow coming in. It kind of worked for both of you to be set up like that.
That's right.
Holy smokes. Okay. So go ahead, Nick.
No, I was just going to say, and then when you did that, because you have this book now, which I think we're going to talk about afterwards, but Tax Efficient Wealth. And I think one of the things that I really like about it is that it's just so, it's such an easy read, and a lot of things with finances, a lot of people don't understand them because they're not put into plain English. And I like the way you just kind of break things down into plain English. But so I'm curious, and I think because it's in here in one of these charts that we'll talk about in a second. But so through this time, then when you're still going through these jobs, you were still investing in properties. So you had the place in 2007. You sold it. Did you sell it before you bought another place, or did you buy another place first?
Well, we bought another place first. So that first property that we buy, we didn't sell it until 2016 or 2015.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that extra 20 grand that you had to pay that you were surprised by ended up working out pretty nice. It ended up being a pretty good. It's like one of the early properties we bought that we think we overpaid for. They ended up being some pretty good mistakes that we made.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, so, we still own that one, and it's more than tripled. So we're okay. Yeah. So the extra, I think it was what do we think, 25 or 30 grand or something that we paid too much? Yeah. When you say we, you mean you overpaid on that one. So, I usually overpay on everything. No, I'll be open. I usually overpay on everything. And you know what? To be fair, I don't even think we overpaid. I think we just looked at a comparable down the street that seemed a little cheaper.
We didn't look into it too much. Yeah. But okay, so then you kept when did you buy your second investment property? First one was 2007. Kind of had some surprises with it. When did you buy it, and why did you buy it? Because the first one was going okay, or it sounded like it might not be going okay, but you still moved on to more.
That's right. So even when we're having some tough experiences with the first one, we just knew, just based on what we were reading, that somehow if we hold it for a long term, that is going to turn around. So the next year, in 2008, that's when we bought the second one, but it was a pre-construction. So we bought the second one, pre-construction, and it was a condo in downtown Mississauga, and then we closed the following year. And so we held that one for about 4 or 5 years in 2012. So it was in 2012 we sold the condo, because I was sitting on the board in the condo, so I saw a few things coming up, and we decided to sell the condo. So we sold the condo in 2008. We used the proceeds, so we bought it for about 200 grand, sold it for about 260 or 265. We used the proceeds to buy a 5-plex in Kitchener in 2012. So we bought that 5-plex in 2012. Then we didn't buy another property until we met you guys in 2014. I think that's when I came into Rockstar in 2014. So in 2014, we bought maybe 2 or 3. Then every year after that...
That's when you met Mike?
That's right.
Yeah.
Then I think every year after that, we've been buying at least 1 or 2. Right. So
that sounds so crazy, right? We bought 3, and then every year after that, we were buying 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got hooked onto the real estate bug.
And then what? And then what? Why? So the one that you sold, that one that you had in 2007, you sold it in 2016. Any reason why? Like why that particular one? I'm just curious.
So that property, we had so many issues. And so when we bought that property in 2017, they had this arrangement where they had a pool of investors. So a pool of investors bought it, and the idea was they were going to manage it as a pool. They were going to pay our mortgages. If there's anything left, they will pay to us. So that only lasted for about 1 year. Then there was a cash call. So I think the property managers were so bad that the vacancy rate was shot up to about 70%. So almost everyone left the property. And so we took over our mortgage. So we started paying our mortgage directly with RBC at the time. We didn't have any tenants, so we almost had our property vacant for about a year or so.
This was the 5-plex?
No, this was the first property we bought.
Oh, okay. What kind of property was the first property?
It's a small condo. It's a low-rise condo of about 70 units.
Okay, and you had one of the units?
Well, I had just one
unit.
unit.
I got you.
That's right. So we had to sustain that property, so we just started paying it. Then luckily, because I also sat on the condo board, so luckily they found an investor. And so this guy came because the banks now took over all the properties for those guys that couldn't sustain their mortgage payments. So the bank took over about 20 units. And so luckily, me, the property manager, and some people on the board, we found this investor in Kitchener who came and bought the whole 20 units. He's a smart guy. I wish I had money then. But he came. He bought the whole 20 units.
He saw the opportunity.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
He bought the whole 20 units for about 90 something grand. We paid about 130 for that property a few years before. So he came, he bought those 20 units. So that now injected some cash into the condo corporation. We hired a new property manager. So that property manager came and they started doing a lot of work to fix the units. So we fixed everything about our property. We now started attracting new tenants. And then slowly the value started rising. And we ended up selling it for about 160, thereabout.
Wow.
We
Yeah,
sold
wow.
it
You got
and
out of that
we
pretty
left.
well. Yeah.
That's right.
I thought you were going to say it came back up to maybe what you paid for it and you sold it.
No, it went a little bit over. So we paid 130. We sold it for about 160.
So a lot of those things. It sounds like around that time, a popular thing that was happening was the condo conversions where people were taking
That's right.
rental. So what way was a condo conversion at the time when you guys originally bought it?
No, when we bought it, the condo conversion just happened before they sold it to us. So this lady that ran the mortgage corporation, so what she had done, so she just made a lot of money from
Yeah.
We know the strategy.
all the stupid
Yeah.
guys that
We know
bought from her. So
we
they
know.
bought the property, converted it, and then sold all the units. So I
Yeah.
was one of those the stupid guys that bought
Well,
one.
it's
Well,
not,
nice.
no, I wouldn't say that. We had so many people in that time calling us a few years later saying
Yeah.
how they had lost money. Like you came out and didn't lose money at least. We know a lot of people who got into those things,
Not left in a very bad situation. actually.
6-figure losses. Like
Yeah,
they
that's
walked
right.
away losing some big money. So
It
you
was
survived.
yeah.
And
It-
you keep saying luckily throughout the whole story, but you got yourself on the condo board.
That's right.
Like you did all these things to be in the know to try to control your own fate.
That's right.
I think
So-
that's the key is that you still had, everyone had it, but you still took control of things where a lot of people just went into it and, because you were promised rent guarantee,
That's right.
right? And then they said, but it only lasted a year, which was very typical. A lot of those things didn't last. Some of them didn't even last a year. But yours at least lasted a year. But then you still took control over your kind of destiny. Whereas a lot of people, they were going into that one expecting it to completely hands off, and then it impacted them even more, right? It's that whole thing. Like the less control you have, the more risk you're at.
Certainly.
Always.
And
You
that's
know what
I
mean?
think that's why you always hear us talk about that too. Like just you want full control.
Certainly.
You want, and even we're going to talk about taxes in here in a little second. I feel like you want the professional to do your taxes, like someone like yourself can, but you want to be involved in what they're
That's right.
doing because you
That's
want
right.
to understand what's happening.
That's right.
Yeah, so you know what's
So-
going. Otherwise, you're just flying blind. If you're someone in that position and you have some assets and you're working with an accountant and you just don't know what's going on, you're like, I don't know, the accountant handles all that. There's certain things that I don't know at all, and it's like the dividends things always I don't fully figure out. But when it comes to like the profit and loss and that type of understanding,
Are we making money
that.
or losing money?
That's right.
But there's some like with some of the tax code stuff, I don't understand. That's one thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just leave everything of their finances to someone else, and then I'm just like, how? I just feel like you should have a handle on it a little bit, right?
Totally
I'm
agree.
surprised you kept going with real estate because I would think that you're still fairly new to a new country, new place, and I feel like that first property kind of left maybe a little bit of a sour taste in real estate. So you were
Yeah.
committed to real estate because that's not a good thing to go through.
Yeah.
What did you end up buying with Mike here on our team?
So we bought. So Mike actually bought our home in Oakville because we were.
He
in
bought
Brampton.
your home?
Yeah. So we were living in Brampton. It was in 2015 we moved to Oakville. So Mike helped us buy our home in Oakville. He bought a property for us as well in Cambridge. Is there another one?
When you say he bought it for you, bought it. He just helped you
yeah,
find
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mike's
Like
a
how
nice
much money?
guy.
How much money is Mike dropping over here? That's why everyone likes Mike. He's buying people properties all over the place. Yeah, cool. Okay.
So I think those are the two that I can remember now: the Cambridge one and here in Oakville.
Got it. And then when you stumble, so you're just love continuing education because that's why you must have stumbled into us
Certainly.
because you were reading and then you probably clicked on one of our ads somewhere and you thought, who the heck are these people? How are these guys going to screw me or what's going to happen? So we're grateful, Ken, that you
thank you.
trusted us enough to kind of work with us. We're very grateful.
Oh, thank you. It was actually Temo. I don't know if you guys know Temo.
Of course.
So Temo and I used to work at PwC in downtown.
Yeah, I think I forgot that.
And
I
so-
knew that and forgot
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It was Temo that linked me to you guys actually. Temo said, "Oh, come to this group." I go to this group in Oakville. Join, and so that's how I joined.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah. Wow. And then, okay, so you buy these properties, then you're now you have a bunch of real estate. You get fired from your job, which is like a complete blessing in disguise. You go full time into this business. Was there a panic moment of the business, or because your partner, she had been running it kind of full time for a little bit, was there enough clients to sustain both of you?
Well, there were clients, but there was not enough cash.
That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Yeah.
So we had clients, but we certainly didn't have enough cash to pay me. So it was sort of scary because I was really not prepared to leave my job. I had planned to leave my job at the end of that year in 2016, but I got let go in January. So 1 year before I had planned to leave. And so it was kind of challenging for me. So that year was challenging because now I had to start liquidating all my investments just to sustain my lifestyle for the next 1 year or so. At the point in the business, we're still investing in the business in terms of, getting new staff, increasing their salaries, trying to figure out ways to grow the business, doing some marketing stuff. And so a lot of the cash we're still pumping into the business. So I was only taking very little. My partner was taking very little. Then I just started doing a few other things on the side, doing some contract work here and there while I was still learning business, just to get some sufficient cash. And so that was what we've done. Even up to this day, we're still investing in the business.
It never ends. Never ends. Yeah, but that salary thing at the beginning is a real doozy to overcome, because I remember when when I quit my job and Nick quit his, I remember I had already had 2 kids at that time. So my carrying costs in my life were a bit more expensive. And I remember Nick and I chatting sometimes saying, listen, if we don't make some money this month, like things are going to get real here pretty soon.
Yeah, the runway early on, the runway can be short. You're like, if you don't, there's not a large margin for error.
That's right.
And if you're not committed to it 100%, you're going to find a way out of it. Like if you go into your own business and you're not committed, there's too many opportunities to get, because I'm sure you considered at least at some point getting another full-time job.
No, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, just think right now how many people started businesses, let's say earlier this year, with that short runway, and they were hit with
COVID.
The COVID and things being shut down, and it's just it's unfortunate because early on, it's you're investing into the business, but when you're forced to shut down and you have a short runway, you're out of luck.
That's right.
So now with your own practice, what do you tell people? How do you introduce people to real estate who don't know? But because most people we deal with, and I'm sure you get the same, they're just completely petrified about we have been told the real estate market is not the market to get into for at least since 2008. I mean, I've been told that since 1998, but at least since 2008, we've been told the real estate market's not something you want to get into. How do you, do you take the tax angle to talk to people about getting into real estate, or what is the angle how do you introduce people to it?
Well, it's mostly looking at it from a long-term perspective. The fact that we have enough history to prove that over time real estate goes up in value. The fact that there is enough data to prove that real estate will outpace inflation. And the fact that real estate is a tax advantage vehicle, right? And so when I come with all of those angles, it becomes a little bit easier to convince clients to go into real estate, because I always try to convince people, you got to figure out the best place to put your cash if you have cash. And if you want to put your cash somewhere, I just look at 4 criteria that you look at, right? You got to think about growth. You got to think about something that can provide you liquidity. You got to think about something that can pay you at least 10% per annum or close to that. And you have to look at something that is going to give you tax advantages, right? And so I just have simple criteria that I use to assess all investments. And that's what I show my clients. Okay, if I give you all of these criteria, why don't you tell me what investment vehicles will meet or will satisfy some of these criteria? And then when they can come up with ideas, then I'm not suggest, well, I think real estate can do this. Tax-exempt life insurance can do this. Business can do this. And then we just narrow it down to a few investments. And so that's how I convince some of my clients with cash
It's
and
funny.
that's how
We,
they
we
invest.
we were just talking about life insurance. Actually, and we have a podcast going out next week about life insurance specifically because we had dismissed a lot of the value and importance of life insurance. Now we get it. On the real estate side, how do you? When people talk to you about liquidity, sometimes I think we enjoy real estate because it's not something you can sell overnight. But a
That's right.
single family home is in the real estate world is a pretty liquid piece of real estate. But it's still not something you're going to sell overnight.
That's right.
How do you explain the liquidity? Is that a showstopper for people saying that they can't sell it quickly, or do you? It is, eh?
So that comes up. So that's one of the big reasons why they don't see it. But I just look at it from a different angle. I say, well, if you set up real estate, the way you create liquidity is to set it up in such a way that you automatically create a line of credit that is attached to your real estate, so that as you pay down your debt, that equity continues to grow. And so when it's time to tap into that equity, you know you have liquid cash you can always tap into. And that is how I explain liquidity. I mean, I don't advise anyone to hold. If you're not going to be in real estate for at least 5 years, then just don't bother buying, because it doesn't make sense when you look at all the costs coming in and the cost going out. At the end of the day, it may not make sense to buy.
You must have thought we were crazy with our 3-year rent to own strategy when you first heard that. What are these guys talking about with these rent to own things? But okay, and then
But I was just going to say, but I think that's the key with the real estate. Why so many people say don't get into the market, because so many people are always looking at it as just the price point, and it's like they're trying to time the market all the time. Versus this approach saying, no, this is like a long-term asset that you're holding, and here are the benefits over the long term. But if you're trying to time it and treat it like it's a stock, it's a different
then
world,
emotions get involved, and it's difficult. The way
Well, yeah.
Ken's outline is very logical.
right? Yeah, and there's so many more costs involved, right? Because you can buy a stock and you pay 1 cent commission or nothing, right? Whereas here you have, like to your point, you have all these costs associated with acquiring it and getting rid of it, but those costs can be recouped over the long run
That's
and plus more.
I'm interested on the 10% return strategy. How do you explain that with real estate? Because real estate's not.
That's right.
Most people getting into real estate might associate that with, properties don't go up 10% a year. How do you explain the 10%?
I mean, we look at all the profit centers in a real estate, right? So the fact that the tenant is paying down your mortgage every month, the fact that you may have some capital appreciation, I mean, doesn't always happen, and the fact that you can also get some cash flow, right? And we know just from our experience and from the experiences of others that you can get at least 10% once you look at all of those profit centers. And so that's why real estate is very, very attractive. So most people don't see all of these profit centers. They only look at the cash that comes to their pocket at the end of every month. And I think that's a short-sighted way to look at real estate.
Mm-hmm. What was the fourth one, Ken? It was growth, liquidity, 10%. What was the fourth one?
So there is growth, there is liquidity, tax advantage, and then there is interest, the annual returns.
Oh, yeah, got it.
Yeah,
got
so
it.
annual return of at least 10%, something that can give you growth over time, tax advantage and liquidity.
And what is your favorite tax advantage that you tell people about real estate? I think there's when our accountant first explained to me that you could be cash flow, because remember, Nick, we bought properties with CMHC fees, and the property itself to us was cash flow positive on a day-to-day basis. But then after you took some of the expenses, and at that time it was CMHC fees that we could take as the deduction on the property.
Well, one of the earliest, I'm pretty sure it's the first rental property I ever have. I don't even know, actually don't remember which one it was. I don't know if it was one with you or with someone else or myself or whatever, but I do remember that I was working at the Region of Peel at the time, and I was making probably about $40,000, low $40,000 range, something like that, maybe 45. And I ended up that year getting just under a $10,000 tax return. And I remember when I got the check, I was blown away. I'm like, what the hell? Like, holy cow, this is crazy. And how I got that is because to your point, it was the property closed late in the year. It was 2 months worth of income on the property. Now I claimed all my expenses.
Yeah, you had all your expenses to claim
now
that
I know.
year.
Now I know you're not really supposed to. You're supposed to amortize them over years.
Ken's going to shake his head at you.
You know
He's
what?
gonna shake
But
his head.
7 years. It's more longer than 7 years ago. I think I'm free, right?
Yeah,
CRA can't come after me, so I'm good.
yeah.
Now I can share it openly. So I screwed up my taxes, and I claimed all the expenses, legal costs, land transfer tax, CMHC fees, to your point, all that stuff. So on paper, it had this big loss. but then I get this big check, but it's cash flow positive, but on paper. So, and then I don't even know if I claimed depreciation or not that year. Probably not.
Probably
It would've
didn't,
been like
because
2
you probably didn't
months.
know what you were doing.
Yeah. Well, I did. I mean, I didn't actually prepare my own taxes, but the person that I went to was just like it was like I don't know if it was H&R Block or not, so don't like sue me for liability, like slander or something. It was just like in the mall, one of those kind of like this tax time comes, they set up in the mall for a month or whatever.
That's
You go
right.
there, you give them your stuff, and they prepare taxes for you. It was one of those types of things. So yeah, it was huge. That's when
we discovered the power of real estate. We're like, whoa.
yeah, because I was reading about the tax stuff, right? Or we were reading about the tax stuff. I could never really. I need like the kind of real life example in front of me for me to truly understand
That's
something.
right.
And that's when it hit me. I'm like, holy shit! I should go back and read what I was reading before, because now I might understand it differently. And that's when it kind of hit me. Right?
That's right. I mean, for the tax part, so the way I like to look at it, because sometimes a lot of people confuse cash flow with profit from the property. So those are two different things, right? So cash flow does not necessarily mean profit. So you may be getting cash flow from the property, but at the end of the day, when you do your tax return, just to your point, you may end up in a loss position. You may even have negative cash flow, but when you do your tax return, you end up in a situation where you have a lot of taxes to pay. And so for tax advantages with real estate, the biggest one is the depreciation, so the CCA that you can claim. And so that is a tool you can use. Then the other important one as well is if you have multiple properties, now you can claim a couple of other expenses because now you're running a business. Right. And so I always advise my clients, you got to structure your lifestyle so that it is so integrated with your business in such a way that some of the things you claim with after-tax dollars or you spend money on with after-tax dollars, you cannot convert some of those expenses to before taxes dollars.
How can you have
so
it?
that's good.
Sorry.
go ahead.
How can you have a negative cash flow property but still be positive at the end of the year?
Well, the biggest reason is the principal payment that you don't deduct, right? So we know how we make a mortgage payment. Let's say my mortgage payment is $2,000 I pay. 1,000 of that may just be interest. The other 1,000 is principal payment.
That's right.
And so on my tax return, I don't deduct the principal, I only deduct the interest.
Yeah. I forgot about that. I was sitting
That's
here
right.
thinking that. I'm like, how does that happen? Like, I'm sure he's right. I'm like, how does it happen? But yeah, I forgot about that.
And then
It's only a portion.
depreciation, there's other things you can take into effect.
That's
But
right.
that'll make you more positive. I was wondering how you
Depreciation
can.
will make more positive. Correct.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's a
got it.
negative. It's that's
So
that's the big one.
depreciation can, if you take the depreciation is something that you can now use to write off all of those expenses, particularly if it's adding to your income. If you're holding the property in your personal name.
That was the
Right?
other, yeah, and that was the other
That's
thing. I didn't realize when I'm holding the property in my personal name. At the time we were buying rental properties,
Yeah.
my income and my T4 income as an employee was high. So I had a lot of taxes
That's
that
right.
I could get back, and that was kind of eye-opening to me as well. So in your book, I know you have these diagrams that I always kind of like go gaga over because I just like the way you've outlined things really straightforward like that. When do you recommend people get corporations to hold real estate? Because you alluded to it right now, and it's a question we get all the time. Like, do I start right now, or when do I start? How do you answer the question?
So for me, I just look at the long term. I say, okay, do you intend to buy more properties? And so if the answer is yes, that I have a plan of buying more rental properties, I always advise use a corporation. But if you say you only want to buy one or two, I say, well, it's just going to be simpler for you to just buy it in your name, right? Because at the end of the day, you may end up getting the same tax advantages. But if you want to buy more, 2, 3, 4, 5, then I just advise you to use a corporation. And that way it's going to be more cost effective for you. It's going to be easier for you to manage. Then you don't have to deal with the additional cost of keeping a corporation.
I think some people run out of the gates and get a corporation just with one property because they're all excited about getting a corporation.
That's
and we're
right.
usually like lead with cash flow. Like get 2 or 3 properties, let the cash flow from the properties pay for the overhead. But then once you get down the corporation road, we didn't understand this for so long, Ken, because we got multiple corporations. We did the whole holding company and
That's right.
had an active business, and we started opening other companies. And then things got interesting. Because then when you can start moving money around between corporations, that's powerful. In your book, you know how you have those diagrams and you're like investing or growing with velocity and then with 10 times velocity?
That's right.
Can you outline what are you talking about when you map those out? Like, what are you referring to when you're saying, here's how you can invest, leverage, and grow tax efficiently with 10 times velocity? Can you, and I know it's difficult because people aren't going to have this in front of them, but can you just outline that a little bit?
Well, it's just about stacking and thinking of ways to leverage. And so if you're starting out, and I advise, well, get a property first to get into the market. And you hold that property for 5 years. You now have some equity in that property. Now, that equity you can use to buy 1 or 2 other properties. And now, once you have 3 properties, you have insurance. Because the type of insurance I like to talk about is the tax advantage insurance that is more like a bank account. And so if you're putting cash in your insurance vehicles, you're putting cash in your TFSA account. So all of this cash, because the whole idea is to figure out a way to save money tax-free, allow that money to grow tax-free, and then withdraw that money tax-free. That is the ultimate goal.
That is a beautiful goal.
It's
a lot of tax-free in that explanation.
Right. It's difficult to achieve, but we can get
It's what we're all
close.
trying to do, yeah.
But we can get pretty close. And so once you start stacking things and doing it intentionally, then it's a lot easier to see how by the time you own 2, 3 properties, then it becomes easy to even double that, right? And so that's the whole essence of velocity and doing it quickly.
It's also, and that's also the point where you add into the diagram the addition of a side business or a side hustle that you mentioned earlier, to additional streams of income that then can offset. Like if your primary source of income is paying for, all your living expenses, and maybe there's some left for savings, if you do get that additional source of income, but you don't allow your lifestyle to change because of it, and you can then either force that all into investments or into additional savings, that then amplifies things very quickly too, which I think a lot of times if people, as their incomes increase or if they get an additional source, their lifestyle will change accordingly, and then that source gets sucked up, and then they can't get ahead from the asset perspective, right? Which is the challenge too. So I like that you kind of threw that in there as well. And it's really complete because the primary residence is there, primary residence number 2. You just got like just options of what to do.
Well, the stuff that you've shared in your book is Canadian specific information that's really hard to get. Like I found we only figured this stuff out after years of working with an accountant. And then you kind of fill in the missing pieces of how everything comes together.
Right.
Whereas what you've done a nice job is explaining exactly how to structure this thing. It's almost like a roadmap. So it's really cool what you've done here. How much do you think personal development has been responsible for where you are today?
Oh, I mean, a whole lot. And I thank you guys for that because I didn't focus a lot on personal development until I came into your world.
Really? Because I feel like you were reading books and you were doing all this stuff.
Yeah, I was, but not a whole lot of personal development books. I was reading a lot more on real estate, and I'm trying to learn more about taxes. But when I came into your world, I don't remember the exact person that you guys referred us to, because you were always recommending lots of books. And so I would start reading all these books. I got onto an email list for one of them. I don't remember who. And all of a sudden, I started getting all this bunch of emails.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
and as I got I got into the marketing world, right? You guys were preaching a lot about marketing and sales. And so as I got into all this marketing world, people like Russell Brunson,
probably
Jeff,
Ryan Dice.
All of them.
Ryan
Dice, all of them. I just got into
Dan
all this
Kennedy,
world.
probably you heard us mention
That's right.
Dan Kennedy.
That's right.
Yeah.
So since 2014, just coming to your events, I was part of your VIP program, coming to those events, and just learning a lot about sales and marketing. It's just recently I started appreciating all of this stuff because even for those years, I just knew all this knowledge. I never really implemented them, particularly in my business. But it's just recently that I now took the initiative to start learning. And I thank God for COVID because that's why I wrote this book.
Yeah.
And then,
give you the time.
I just started diving deep into stuff. I took all sorts of marketing classes. I did the One Funnel Away Challenge with Russell Brunson.
Awesome.
Started getting deep into marketing, started getting deep into all this stuff. And now I'm loving it because now I appreciate all of this stuff.
It's funny because I looked at the sub headline of the book earlier, and I was like, "Huh, it's actually pretty good." So it's something similar to what we would look at as the blueprint to quickly build tax efficient wealth
That's
to
right.
achieve financial freedom in 4 actionable steps.
That's
Which
Yeah, we
is-
read
which-
that and we're like,
yeah.
oh, there's a marketer
Yeah,
here.
there's something-
This
yeah.
is it. Yeah, so good for you. And even the website that you have your book on, it looks like you are doing some advanced marketing stuff because you're offering the
right.
book. Yeah,
That's right.
you're offering the book. And I think the reason that we always kind of shake everybody and say, hey, it's not just real estate. Like real estate's so powerful in all our lives, right? But the sales and the marketing, if you're going to start a side hustle, these are the keys to freedom. Because I bet you, if you end up going back to living in Nigeria, with what you know here about real estate, but also about sales and marketing, you could go there and start your own business. And
Certainly.
it's the same principles over there.
Yeah,
and to
certainly.
me, that's personal. You know, we always talk about your life, your terms. To me, if Ken Green knows how to make a sale, if he knows how to market to get attention in himself, he's got pure freedom. It doesn't
That's
matter the economic system or environment. He's going to be able to craft out a living for him and his family. I'm talking like you're not here, Ken. but that's what we feel gives us freedom. That I feel like Nick and I, we could be dropped anywhere in the world, and it's like, you know what, we're going to figure things out.
I think it applies to just investing in real estate as well. If you haven't done anything outside of a corporate 9-to-5 world, and then you become an investor with your first property, as you know, with your first one, when you got on the condo board and there was these issues that came up and you handled these issues, all of a sudden your resourcefulness and kind of what you're comfortable with and your comfort level just within life and within everyday society changes, and you're capable of more. And I've seen a lot of investors say that. They're like, yeah, once I started investing in real estate, I didn't realize I could do a lot of the things that I can do. And because there was that like fear or just kind of lack of the unknown that was holding them back a little bit. So in both ways, specifically sales and marketing in that way, but just sometimes whether it's investing in real estate or doing something else that you wouldn't normally do, it just expands who you are as a person. And you're able to do and conquer more and take those skills. If it is in real estate or something else, they're transferable into other areas as well. No different than the sales and marketing stuff is, right?
Yeah, totally agree.
So I'm excited that you got into that, Ken. That's super cool.
And I thank you for planting the seed because for those, 6 years, just watching you guys and just learning and just absorbing, I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't get into it earlier. I think I was just too busy.
The timing's not, yeah.
I had my head in the sand with my accounting business. Sometimes if we don't look up, we don't see the opportunities.
And sometimes you see the opportunity in someone else, and you're
That's
like,
right.
I know
That's
there's you got to do this stuff, you
That's
know.
right.
But
There's timing too.
oh,
There's
yeah.
the timing to things change. That changes things for sure too.
And
right?
the thing that now, I'm 47 right now, and the thing that I've come to appreciate, if you can meet professionals like yourself, Ken, who set you up with the right corporate strategies early with your real estate. Every real estate investor goes through this period where they get very frustrated. You buy your first property, you have no more money. Or you're lucky enough to get 2, let's say, and then you have no more money, and a few years go by, and you're feeling like you're not getting ahead. It's the most. It's kind of like this desert area, and as the real estate investor in the real estate investors world, where they're suffering a little bit. But if you stick with it, and properties go up in value, and then you have one of these credit lines, like you said, it has a liquidity, and then you can dip into that, and then eventually buy another property. It sounds like it takes forever, but when 5 years passes, and then 10 years passes, and now that Nick and I are getting older, and it's compounding.
That's right.
Then you see the power of setting the structures up properly in a corporate, and you understand how people get ahead.
That's right.
And then you just want to tell the world. You're like, oh my gosh.
I know, but a lot of the world wants to hear that it happens in 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks,
They don't want to hear that.
They don't want to hear that Ken got screwed on some property, went from 130 down to 90, and he had to put himself on the condo board. And it's hard work, and you freak out.
It's long term. You got to do the right things consistently over the long term, and then there's a lot of good things that happen when you just take that approach with things.
That's right.
Right.
So, Ken, anyone listening to the and first of all, I guess we should say that we should have invited your wife on here too, because you brought her up enough. So please, please tell her we say hi, and next time she has to come on with you.
Certainly.
But if someone listening to this wants to get a copy of the book, which website should they go to for this the book, or where can they find a copy of it?
Well, the best place is just to go to kengreen.ca. So if you go to kengreen.ca, you'll see the tax efficient wealth tab there, and you can click on it, or just go to kengreen.ca/tax efficient wealth.
Yeah, cool. Thanks,
Yeah.
Ken. You have a more Canadian name than we have, Ken. Ken Green. I'm Tomislav Mio Karaja. Yeah. So kengreen.ca. Yeah, cool. Anything else you wanted to share while you're here before we wrap up?
No, just thank you for some reason just putting me on this journey and just elevating my experience and my education. And so this is what I'm all about now, just trying to educate people and to share as much as I can, because I think that's what you guys have been doing for years. Because if you educate yourself, then you have more control, right? You have more control in terms of what you do with your money and how you grow how you grow your money as well. And so that's what I'm doing, just preaching to people, just learn, develop yourself, develop your financial knowledge as much as you can, and take control of your investments.
Yeah, cool. Thanks,
Awesome.
Ken. And I just want to say one thing. You know how cool it is for Nick and I that, we've crossed paths like this, and now you're saying you're out there educating people. So, like, we don't know if we're educators in any way. We're trying to share our journey and trying to share stuff, but then you've been influenced in some small way by many people, right? But including us a little bit. But then now you're out there sharing the message, and I just feel like there's this group of us, and together we can really make an impact on everybody in Canada, right across the country. And we're all doing it in our own ways and our own voices, and I feel like it's powerful.
Yeah.
So to be on that journey with you now, where you're educating, we're educating together.
Right.
I feel Nick and I are both very grateful for that.
Yeah,
So,
you just expressed it better. I was going to say it just makes me feel like now if there's someone else that is going down that path, it just makes us old.
yeah.
So Tom expressed it in a much better
That
way
too, yeah,
than I
it
was
makes
going
us
to
feel
say.
old. Yeah. Ken, thank you, man. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Hey everyone, hopefully you enjoyed that episode with Ken. You can check out his book, pick up a copy for yourself at kengreen.ca. His book is available on Amazon. We have some copies here in the office. If you're in the office, we will hand you a copy. Get this information. This is Nick and I talk about all the time that one of the biggest things that Canadians can do is understand the corporate structures that you can use for holding your real estate. So when someone lays it out very plainly in a book like this, it is very beneficial for all of us. So Ken, we're grateful you did this. Thanks for putting the book together. You can learn more about Ken and the book at Ken